10 years after humanity joined the Galactic Council, Admiral Thexnor prepared for his retirement ceremony. He was old now, even by Viridian standards. His blue skin had faded to pale gray. His 3 eyes were dimmer than they once were. But his mind remained sharp. The ceremony took place on Earth. Humanity had insisted. They wanted to honor the admiral who had first contacted them, who had trusted them when others saw only primitives, who had helped them find their place in galactic civilization. Thexnor stood on a platform overlooking the city they called Geneva. It was beautiful in a way he had not expected. Humans had scarred their world with countless wars, yet they had also preserved its beauty. Mountains rose in the distance. A lake sparkled in the afternoon sun. The contradiction was very human. Admiral Sarah Chen approached him. She too had aged, though humans showed it differently than Viridians. Gray streaked her dark hair. Lines marked her face, but her eyes still held that same dangerous awareness. "Are you ready for your speech, Admiral?" Thexnor smiled. "I have had 10 years to prepare. I think I know what to say." The ceremony began. Representatives from all council species attended. Even the Krell sent a delegation, though they still harbored resentment over their defeat years ago. Captain Zala, now an admiral herself, introduced the honored guest. Thexnor stepped forward to address the crowd. He looked out at the assembled beings, humans and aliens standing together, warriors and diplomats, the powerful and the peaceful, all united under the council banner. 10 years ago I met humanity for the first time. I thought I understood warfare. I had fought for 30 years against the Zathor. I had commanded fleets. I had witnessed countless battles, but I understood nothing. He paused, letting his words settle. Humanity taught me that war is not about honor. It is not about glory. It is about survival. And sometimes it is about protecting those who cannot protect themselves. The humans did not ask to become the galaxy's warriors. History made them what they are. 10,000 years of conflict. 10,000 years of learning how to kill efficiently. They could have stayed hidden in their corner of space. They could have ignored our suffering. Instead, they chose to help. They chose to fight. And in 3 weeks, they ended a war that had consumed us for 47 years. Some of you fear humanity. I understand that fear. I felt it too. Humans are dangerous. They possess weapons we cannot match. They employ tactics we find disturbing. They fight without the restraints we consider civilized. But here is what I learned in 10 years of working with them. They are also compassionate. They are also just. They use their power to protect, not to conquer. They could dominate the council through force. They choose instead to serve it. A voice from the crowd interrupted. "How can we trust species so good at killing?" Thexnor looked toward the speaker. It was a young Sylvari diplomat, idealistic, untested by war because they are honest about what they are. Humans do not pretend to be peaceful. They do not claim moral superiority. They simply state the truth. They are very good at warfare, and they will use that skill to protect this council, not because they want power, but because they understand something we forgot. Peace must be defended. Freedom must be protected. Sometimes the only way to stop violence is with greater violence. Another voice spoke, this time from the Krell delegation. "You speak of protection, but humans destroyed our fleet. They killed thousands of our people. Is that protection?" The crowd murmured. This was the question many wanted answered. Thexnor turned to face the Krell representative. "Your fleet was destroyed because it was engaged in aggressive warfare. You sought to conquer the Thundari. You ignored warnings. You proceeded with invasion. Humanity stopped you. They did what the Council should have done decades ago. They enforced peace. Yes, Krell died, but how many Thundari would have died if your invasion succeeded? Millions? Billions?" The Krell representative had no answer. Admiral Chen stepped forward. "With your permission, Admiral, I would like to address that question." Thexnor gestured for her to proceed. Chen faced the crowd. Her voice carried clearly in the outdoor amphitheater. The Krell ask a fair question. How can we claim to protect when we kill? The answer is simple but difficult. We kill those who would harm innocents. We destroy those who wage aggressive war. We eliminate threats before they consume millions. This is not murder. This is defense. Humanity learned this lesson through terrible experience. We fought wars that killed billions of our own people. We used weapons that nearly destroyed our world. We know the cost of war better than any species here. And because we know that cost, we will do whatever necessary to prevent it. She paused, her gaze sweeping across the assembled beings. Some of you think humans are violent. You are correct, we are. But we are controlled violence. We are purposeful violence. We do not fight for glory or conquest. We fight to end conflicts. We fight to protect the weak. We fight because someone must. And we accept the burden that comes with that role. You fear us? Good. Fear makes people think twice before starting wars. But do not mistake fear for hate. We do not seek to dominate you. We seek only to preserve what we have all built together. General Webb joined them on the platform. He was older now, near the end of his career. Scars covered his weathered face. Each one told a story of battles fought and survived. I want to tell you something about human history, he said. His voice was rough but clear. For 10,000 years we fought each other. We killed for resources. We killed for territory. We killed for beliefs. We nearly destroyed ourselves countless times. But we learned something through all that death. We learned that peace is not the absence of ability to wage war. Peace is the choice not to wage war when you have that ability. Humanity is capable of terrible destruction. We proved that against the Zathor. We proved it against the Krell. But we choose restraint. We choose to use our power wisely. That choice defines us more than our weapons do. Thexnor listened to his human colleagues and felt pride. These were not monsters. They were guardians. Dangerous guardians, certainly. But necessary ones. He stepped forward again. The Council faces a choice. You can reject human methods. You can demand they fight according to your rules. But remember what happened before humanity arrived. The Zathor were consuming the galaxy. We were losing. Our civilized warfare was not enough. Or you can accept what humanity offers: protection, security, peace, not gentle peace. Not comfortable peace. But real peace. Enforced peace. The kind of peace that allows civilizations to grow without fear of extinction. The crowd was silent now. Every being present understood the weight of what was being said. I spent 47 years fighting the Zathor. I lost friends. I lost ships. I lost count of how many beings died under my command. And I achieved nothing. The Zathor kept coming. We kept losing. Then humanity arrived, and in weeks they ended what I could not end in decades. Was their victory beautiful? No. Was it honorable by our standards? No, but it was effective. It saved trillions of lives. It preserved civilization. That is what matters. He looked at Chen, at Webb, at the other human officers present. These beings are not perfect. They are not gentle, but they are faithful. They keep their promises. They defend their allies. They stop aggressors. And they ask nothing in return except the freedom to do things their way. I recommend we give them that freedom. I recommend we trust them to continue protecting this council, because the alternative is returning to a galaxy where might makes right, where the strong prey upon the weak, where wars last decades and consume trillions. I do not want to return to that galaxy. I suspect none of you do either. The speech ended. The crowd remained quiet for a long moment. Then applause began. Not from everyone. The Krell delegation did not clap. Some Sylvari remained silent. But most beings showed their approval. They understood the truth in the Admiral's words. That evening, Thexnor and Chen shared drinks one final time. They sat on a balcony overlooking the city. Earth sunset painted the sky in colors that reminded the Admiral of his homeworld. What will you do in retirement? Chen asked. Write, teach. Help the next generation understand what we built here. You continue serving. There is always another threat. Always another crisis. Humanity cannot rest. Not while others depend on us. Do you ever regret it? Taking on this burden? Chen was quiet for a long time. Finally she answered. Every day. But regret does not change necessity. The galaxy needs protectors. We are capable of being those protectors. So we serve. That is what humanity does. We see problems and we solve them. Sometimes gently. Sometimes violently. But we solve them. The Admiral raised his glass. To the next 10 years. May they be as peaceful as the last. Chen touched her glass to his. To peace, however it must be achieved. They drank in comfortable silence. Around them, Earth's night fell. Above them, stars emerged. Somewhere out there, human warships patrolled the darkness. Watching, waiting, ready. The galaxy slept safely, because humanity never did. 10 years had passed since humans joined the battle. 10 years since they ended a war in mere hours. The galaxy had changed. Peace had become normal. Aggression had become unthinkable. Not because beings had become better, but because they remembered what happened to those who threatened others. The Zathor were extinct. The Krell fleet was destroyed. Countless potential conflicts had been stopped before they started. The council representatives gathered in the command center on Kelthera Prime. They looked at the screens showing the human fleet. 23 ships hung in space waiting for orders. The ships were strange. They did not glow with energy shields. They did not pulse with exotic power. They just sat there dark and heavy and solid. High Arbiter Thesson spoke first. Her crystalline body flickered with nervous light. They use kinetic weapons, projectiles and explosives. I did not think such primitive technology still existed. Another representative, a machine being called Executor 9, made a sound like grinding gears. They do not even have proper faster-than-light communication. They carry message drones, like we did 40,000 years ago. Vexillor listened to them talk. She heard the fear and anger in their voices. The council was dying, and these were the only beings in the galaxy who had answered their call for help. Of course they were disappointed. She was disappointed too, but disappointment would not save them. "Let me speak with their commander," Vexillor said. A moment later, Colonel Sarah Chen appeared on the main screen. She was human, obviously. Short dark hair, brown eyes, skin the color of light wood. She wore a simple military uniform with no decoration except for a few metal symbols on her chest. She looked tired but alert. "Colonel Chen," Vexillor said, "thank you for coming. But I must be honest with you. The enemy we face has destroyed hundreds of systems. Our most powerful weapons do nothing to it. I do not know what you think you can do." Chen nodded. "We read your data files. This silence thing erases matter from our dimension, right? It feeds on exotic energy?" "Yes," Vexillor said. "That is what our scientists believe." "Then maybe it can't eat what we're serving," Chen said. "We don't use exotic energy. We use chemical explosions and metal projectiles. Basic physics. We're too primitive to be a good meal." The council representatives started talking at once. Thesson raised a crystalline hand for silence. "Colonel, do you truly believe your weapons will harm this enemy? It has consumed civilizations far more advanced than yours." "Don't know until we try," Chen said. "But I figure there's a chance. Otherwise, why would we come all this way?" Before anyone could respond, alarms started blaring. Pilot Krishna, a young Avarian manning the sensor station, shouted a warning. "Contact!" The silence is manifesting physical forms. On the screens, everyone could see them now. Massive shapes appeared in space between the human fleet and Kelthera Prime. They were hard to look at directly. They seemed to exist and not exist at the same time, phasing in and out of reality. The council had never seen the silence take physical form before. It had always just been an invisible wave of destruction. "Silence drones," Vexillor said quietly. "It has never done this before." "Why now?" Chen's face was calm on the screen. "Maybe it smells fresh meat." "All ships, this is Chen. Weapons free. Light them up." The human ships opened fire. It was nothing like council weapons. There were no beams of coherent light, no waves of quantum disruption, no reality-bending fields. Instead, metal slugs flew through space at incredible speeds. Missiles with simple chemical warheads streaked toward the silenced drones. Railguns fired solid metal rounds that moved so fast they glowed white-hot. The council representatives watched in shock as the first rounds hit a silenced drone. The creature flickered and twisted, but it did not phase through the attack like it did with energy weapons. The metal rounds punched into its strange, not quite real body. Dark fluid leaked out, if fluid was the right word. The drone made a sound that hurt to hear, like reality itself was screaming. "They are hurting it," Thesson whispered. "By the ancestors, they are actually hurting it." More missiles hit. More railgun rounds tore through the silence drones. The creatures tried to phase out of reality, but the purely physical attacks followed them somehow. One drone exploded into fragments that faded away into nothing. Another one twisted and collapsed in on itself. But there were more drones appearing, many more. The silence was responding to the threat. Human ships started taking damage. One ship's armor was torn open by a drone that got too close. Another ship lost power and started drifting. Chen's voice came through the speakers. "Commander Vexillor, we've proven we can hurt them. But there are too many in space. We need to take this fight to the ground." "The ground?" Vexillor did not understand. "The silence is consuming Kelthera Prime from the inside. Anyone who goes down there will be erased." "Your people, maybe," Chen said. "But we're betting the silence has a harder time erasing something as simple and stupid as a human. We're going down there. We're going to find whatever is causing this and put a bullet in it. Executor 9 spoke up. That is suicide. No ground force has ever survived contact with the silence. It simply unmakes them. Then we'll be the first, Chen said. We didn't come all this way to hide in space. Dropships are launching now. We'll be on the surface in 20 minutes. The screen went dark. Vexillor watched as dozens of small craft separated from the human ships and dove toward Kelthera Prime. The planet below was already being consumed. Parts of it flickered in and out of existence. Entire cities were there one moment and gone the next. They are insane, Thesson said. But Vexillor heard something else in the Arbiter's voice. Hope. Desperate. Foolish hope that maybe these primitive humans could do what 50,000 years of advancement could not. Pilot Kreshna turned from his station. Commander, the star. Look at the star, Vexillor looked. The sun of Kelthera Prime was flickering now. Not steady like a normal star should be. It pulsed between bright and dark, bright and dark. The silence was reaching it. Soon it would go dark forever, and everything in this system would freeze and die. How long? She asked. 6 hours, maybe less, Kreshna said. His voice shook. When the star goes out, the silence will spread through the entire system. There will be nowhere to run. 6 hours. The humans had 6 hours to do the impossible. Vexillor watched their dropships disappear into the atmosphere of Kelthera Prime. She did not know if the humans understood what they were flying into. The silence did not just kill, it erased. It removed things from existence as if they had never been. But the humans had hurt the silence in space. They had made it bleed, if that was the right word. Maybe, just maybe, they could do the impossible. Or maybe they would all die together, council and human alike, erased from reality while the silence moved on to consume the rest of the galaxy. Above them, the star flickered again. The light grew dimmer. Time was running out. All remaining ships, Vexillor said into her communicator, form a defensive line around the planet. Keep those drones busy. Buy the humans as much time as we can. Her fleet moved into position. Council ships with their elegant designs and powerful energy weapons took their places next to the blocky human warships with their primitive guns. Together they formed a wall between the silence and Kelthera Prime. It would not be enough. Vexillor knew that, but it was all they had. The humans were on the ground now, fighting a battle that no one had ever survived. The council could only watch and hope and pray to whatever gods they still believed in. The star flickered again. Darker now. Much darker. All hope was lost, but the humans were still fighting. Sergeant Marcus Webb hit the ground hard. The dropship had landed in the middle of a city that was dying. Buildings faded in and out of existence around him. He could see people, civilians from a dozen different alien species, frozen in time. Some were running. Some were screaming. But they were not moving. They were stuck like images burned into the air. Move out, Webb shouted. His Marines poured out of the dropship, weapons ready. They were the first humans to set foot on an alien world during an actual war. Webb did not have time to think about how strange that was. The air felt wrong. It was cold, much colder than it should be, and there was a sound, or maybe the absence of sound, a pressure in his ears that made everything feel muffled and distant. Contact, one of his Marines yelled. Webb turned and saw them. The silence harvesters. They were tall, much taller than any human, and their bodies seemed to exist in multiple places at once. When Webb looked directly at one, it hurt his eyes. When he looked away, he could not quite remember what he had seen. Open fire. Rifles barked. Bullets tore through the air. Webb watched as the rounds hit a harvester. The creature flickered and twisted, but it did not fall. Instead, it moved forward, reaching toward the Marines. One of Webb's soldiers, a young man named Torres, did not move fast enough. The harvester's hand, if it was a hand, touched his shoulder. Torres screamed. It was a horrible sound, full of pain and terror and something else. Something worse. Webb watched as Torres started to fade. Not die, fade, like someone was erasing him from reality. But it was slow. Torres was still screaming. He was still there, partly there, fighting to exist. Get him back. Webb grabbed Torres and pulled him away from the harvester. The young Marine was still partly visible, still partly real. His body was cold, so cold it burned to touch. But he was alive. He was still alive, more gunfire. The harvester finally fell, its body breaking apart into fragments of nothing. But there were more of them, many more. They came from the buildings, from the ground, from the air itself. Fall back to the plaza, Webb ordered. His Marines retreated in good order, firing as they moved. More harvesters fell, but more kept coming, and some of his people were touched. They screamed and faded, but they did not disappear completely. Not like the aliens did. Webb realized something important. The silence could hurt humans. It could kill them. But it could not erase them instantly. Humans were too simple, too basic, too real. The silence had to work harder to unmake them. That gave them a chance. A small one, but a chance. Up in orbit, a crystalline scientist named Learmoth watched the battle through sensors. She had studied the silence for months, trying to understand it. Now she was seeing something new. Something that changed everything. The humans resist, she said to Vexilor. Look at the data. When the silence touches one of our warriors, they cease to exist in less than a second. But the humans take 30 seconds, sometimes longer. Their biological simplicity protects them. Vexilor looked at the screen showing the ground battle. Human Marines fought and died, but they fought. That was more than any council species had managed. Why? She asked. What makes them different? They are purely organic, Learmoth explained. No genetic engineering, no cybernetic implants, no nanotechnology in their cells. Every council species has modified themselves over thousands of years. We are partly synthetic, partly energy-based. We are sophisticated. The humans are just meat and bone and blood, simple, basic, real. And that makes them harder to erase, Vexilor said slowly. She understood now. The council's advancement had made them vulnerable. They had reached so high that they had become unreal in a way. Easier for the silence to consume. Down on the surface, Webb and his Marines fought their way deeper into the city. They moved from building to building using tactics that had not been used in galactic warfare for thousands of years. Ambushes, traps, simple explosives rigged to blow when the harvesters came close. It was brutal. It was primitive. But it worked. Webb watched as one of his Marines, a woman named Park, planted charges on a building that was half gone. When the harvesters came through, she triggered the explosion. The blast tore through them. Physical force. Simple physics. No exotic energy for the silence to feed on. Sergeant, his radio crackled. It was Colonel Chen. We need you to push toward the center of the city. Our sensors show some kind of focal point there. We think that's where the silence is strongest. Understood, Webb said. But Colonel, we're taking heavy casualties. We can fight these things, but we can't win. There are too many. I know, Chen said. Her voice was tired. But we have to try. If we don't stop the silence here, it will consume everything. Every world. Every species. Everything. Webb looked at his remaining Marines. They were scared. They were hurt. But they were still fighting. That was what humans did. They fought even when it was hopeless. All units, push forward, he ordered. They moved deeper into the dying city. Buildings dissolved around them. The ground beneath their feet felt unstable, like it might stop existing at any moment. The harvesters came at them in waves, and the Marines fought each wave with bullets and grenades and sheer stubborn determination. Above them, in orbit, Colonel Chen received a communication from Vexilor. Colonel, we need to talk about something difficult. Go ahead, Chen said. Our scientist Learmoth has discovered something. The silence is attracted to advanced technology. It feeds on the exotic energy we use. If we want your soldiers to be more effective, we need to create a zone free of advanced technology. Chen was quiet for a moment. How big a zone? The entire city center. We would need to shut down all power systems, all advanced shields, all energy fields. There are thousands of civilians in that area who depend on that technology to survive. Life support systems. Medical equipment, everything. Chen closed her eyes. This was the choice that commanders dreaded. Save the many by sacrificing the few, or try to save everyone and lose everything. How many would we lose? She asked. Thousands, Vexilor said quietly. Maybe more. The species who need technological support to live in this atmosphere will die quickly. Others will follow. And if we don't do it, the silence will consume the entire planet in the next 2 hours. Then it will spread to other systems. Billions will die. Eventually, trillions. Chen made the decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Do it. Shut down the advanced systems. Create the primitive zone. Understood, Vexilor said. May the ancestors forgive us. The advanced systems shut down. In the city center, aliens who depended on technology to breathe began to suffocate. Others, kept alive by medical machines, began to die. It was horrible. It was necessary. It was war. But Webb and his Marines noticed the difference immediately. The harvesters moved slower. They seemed confused, less focused. The pressure in the air lessened. The cold was still there, but not as intense. "They're weaker," Torres said. He was still alive, still fighting despite being touched by the silence. "We can hurt them more easily now." "Then let's finish this," Webb said. "Everyone with me. We're going to the center. We're going to find whatever is causing this, and we're going to kill it." The Marines pushed forward. Above them, the star flickered and dimmed. Time was running out. But for the first time since the silence had appeared, someone was fighting back. And winning, even if the cost was terrible. Dr. Yuki Tanaka had not expected to be part of a war. She was a xenobiologist, someone who studied alien life. But when Earth received the distress signal from the Galactic Council, they needed someone who understood how different species worked. So here she was on a Council command ship watching people die. She worked with Learmoth, the crystalline scientist. Together they studied the silence, trying to understand what it really was. The data they gathered was terrifying. "It is alive," Tanaka said, staring at her screens. "Not like we thought. It's not a force or a phenomenon. It's a living creature. A collective consciousness that exists in the spaces between dimensions." Learmoth's crystalline body pulsed with worried light. "Yes, and it feeds on the ripples that advanced technology makes in reality. The Council has been making those ripples for 50,000 years. We built star-spanning cities, consciousness transfer networks, reality engines. We thought we were advancing. Instead, we were ringing a dinner bell. And humans don't make those ripples," Tanaka said. "We're too simple. Too basic. We barely show up on the silence's senses." "Exactly. You are whispers in the cosmic noise. That is why you can hurt it. You approach it from an angle it did not expect." On the surface, Webb's forces had pushed to the city center. What they found there made them stop and stare. A massive structure rose from the ground, but it was not really there. It phased in and out of reality, existing and not existing at the same time. It was beautiful and horrible, a tower of impossible geometry that hurt to look at. "That's it," Webb said. "That's the Silence Corps, that's what's doing this." His remaining Marines were exhausted. They had fought for hours. More than half of his force was dead or missing. But they had made it. They had reached the source. "All weapons target that structure," Webb ordered. They fired everything they had. Bullets, missiles, grenades, rockets. The attacks hit the core and it reacted. It screamed. A sound that came from everywhere and nowhere at once. The ground shook. Buildings that were still standing began to collapse. But the core did not fall. Instead, more harvesters appeared. Dozens of them. Hundreds. They poured out of the structure like water, surrounding the Marines. "Fall back," Webb shouted. But there was nowhere to go. They were surrounded. The harvesters moved closer, reaching with their terrible hands. Above, Colonel Chen watched in horror. "We need to help them. Send down more troops." "There are no more troops," Vexillor said quietly. "Everyone we can spare is already on the surface. We are losing." Chen looked at the tactical display. The human casualty rate was 60%. 6 out of every 10 soldiers were dead. The ones who remained were surrounded. And above them all, the star was dying. "Ma'am," her communications officer said. "Message from Earth Fleet, they're sending something." "They said it's our last option." "What are they sending?" Chen asked. The officer looked uncomfortable. "Nuclear weapons, old ones. Fission bombs, not fusion. They said the primitive design might be more effective." The council representatives exploded in protest. Ambassador Corin, an Avarian who had been quiet until now, spread her wings in outrage. "Nuclear weapons? Those have been banned for 3,000 years. They poison everything they touch." "Yes," Chen said calmly. "They do, but they also work. And right now we need something that works." "You cannot use them," Corin insisted. "The radiation will kill everyone in the area. It will make the planet uninhabitable for generations." Chen turned to face her. "Ambassador, if we don't stop the silence here, there won't be a planet." "There won't be anything, just empty space where Kelthera Prime used to be. Is that what you want?" Corin was silent. She looked at the screen showing the dying star, the crumbling planet, the surrounded Marines. Finally, she lowered her wings. "Do what you must, but there was a problem. The nuclear weapons would not arrive for another hour. And Webb's Marines did not have an hour. They were being overwhelmed. The harvesters were tearing through them, and even human stubbornness had its limits. Then something unexpected happened. The stars went dark. Not just the sun of Kelthera Prime. All of them. Every star visible in the sky simply stopped shining. The silence had accelerated its attack. It was consuming everything at once. Time's up, Tanaka whispered. It's changed tactics. It realizes the humans are a real threat. It's trying to finish this before we can stop it. In the darkness lit only by the chemical flares the humans had dropped, Webb gathered his remaining soldiers. There were maybe 30 of them left. 30 humans against an enemy that had destroyed civilizations. Listen up, he said. His voice was tired but steady. We're not getting out of this. You all know that. But we can still hurt this thing. We can make it bleed. And maybe, just maybe, that will be enough. He looked at his soldiers. They were scared. They were hurt. But they were still standing. We're Marines. We don't quit. We don't surrender. And we sure as hell don't let some interdimensional monster eat our galaxy without a fight. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to charge that core. We're going to get inside it. And we're going to plant every explosive we have left right in its heart. Who's with me? Every hand went up. Every single one. Above, Chen watched the Marines prepare for their final attack. She wanted to stop them. She wanted to find another way. But there was no other way. The nuclear weapons would arrive too late. The stars were dying. The galaxy was ending. All hope was lost. But then Vexilor did something that no council commander had done in 50,000 years. She made a decision based not on logic or protocol, but on emotion, on respect. On hope, all council ships, she broadcast. Power down your advanced weapons. Switch to kinetic arms. If you do not have kinetic weapons, ram the harvesters. We are done hiding behind our technology. If the humans can fight with primitive weapons, so can we. There was silence on the channel. Then one by one, council ships began to comply. Avarians picked up human rifles that felt awkward in their clawed hands. Crystalline warriors abandoned their energy blades and grabbed metal clubs. Machine beings shut down their plasma cores and activated ancient backup systems that used simple electricity. It was clumsy. It was desperate, but it was beautiful. 50,000 years of advancement set aside in favor of brutal, simple effectiveness. Ambassador Corrin watched from the command center. She had spent her entire life believing that the Council's advancement made them superior. Now she saw the truth. They had become so advanced that they had forgotten how to fight. They had forgotten how to be dangerous. The humans had never forgotten. On the dark surface of Kelthera Prime, Webb gave the order. Charge! The Marines ran toward the Silence Core. The harvesters tried to stop them. Some succeeded. Marines fell, fading into nothing. But others kept running, kept fighting, kept pushing forward, and above them the stars remained dark, silent, waiting to see if life would fight hard enough to survive. Webb ran through darkness lit only by the glow of the Silence Core ahead. His Marines ran beside him. Behind him, some fell, some disappeared. But the rest kept running. The core was massive up close. It towered above them, a structure that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Looking at it made Webb's head hurt and his eyes water. But he did not stop. He could not stop. They reached the base of the core. Up close, Webb could see it was made of something between matter and energy. It pulsed with light that came from nowhere. It breathed with a rhythm that matched no living thing he knew. Plant the charges, he shouted. His remaining soldiers pulled out every explosive they had. C4. Grenades, rocket warheads rigged to blow. They placed them against the core's surface. The core seemed to realize what they were doing. It pulled at them, trying to unmake them, but they resisted. Humans were too simple, too real, too stubbornly physical to erase quickly. Charges set, Torres called out. He was barely visible now, half faded from the silence's touch. But he was still there, still fighting. Webb looked at his soldiers. 10 of them remained. 10 out of the thousands who had landed on this planet. 10 against an enemy that had consumed civilizations. Fall back, he ordered. Sergeant? One of them asked. I said, fall back. That's an order. Get out of here. Tell them we were here. Tell them Earth fights. They hesitated. Then they ran. Webb watched them go. He hoped some of them would make it. He hoped someone would survive to tell the story. Above in orbit, Colonel Chen watched Webb through the sensors. She knew what he was doing. She wanted to stop him, but she could not. This was war. This was sacrifice. This was what soldiers did. Vexilor stood beside her. The Avarian commander had lived for 300 years. She had seen countless battles, but she had never seen anything like this. Your people are remarkable, she said quietly. We have technology that can move planets. We have lived for thousands of years. But we forgot how to be brave. We forgot how to sacrifice. Your sergeant is teaching us. Chen did not answer. She could not trust her voice. On the surface, Webb stood alone at the base of the silence core. The harvesters surrounded him now. They reached for him with their terrible hands. He felt himself beginning to fade, to unmake, to stop existing, but he held on. He held the detonator in his hand. One button. That was all. One button and this would be over. He thought about Earth. He thought about blue skies and green grass and the smell of rain. He thought about all the things he would never see again. Then he thought about all the beings in the galaxy who would never see anything again if he failed. He pressed the button. The explosion was like nothing the galaxy had ever witnessed. It was not just fire and force. It was a rejection, a denial, a violent assertion that matter was real, that physics mattered, that the simple physical world had power. The silence core screamed. The sound came from every dimension at once, a howl of pain and surprise and fear. Fear. For the first time, the silence felt fear. The core collapsed inward. The harvesters dissolved. The pressure in the air released like a breaking dam. And then slowly, the darkness began to lift. Above Kelthera Prime, the sun began to shine again. Not bright, not yet, but it was there. It was real. It existed. On other worlds, other stars flickered back to life. The silence was retreating. It was not destroyed, but it was hurt. Badly hurt. And it was frightened. For the first time in its existence, it had encountered prey that fought back in a way it could not consume. It withdrew to the spaces between dimensions. It would wait there. It would heal. But it would remember. It would remember Earth. It would remember humans. And it would stay away. In the command center, Chen stood in silence. Around her, the council representatives cheered. They celebrated survival. But Chen could only think about the cost. 10,000 human soldiers had come to Kelthera Prime. Fewer than 500 survived. We won, Vexillor said softly. Did we? Chen asked. Look at the casualty reports. Look at the civilians we sacrificed. Look at the planet below. Half of it is gone. The other half is poisoned. We saved the galaxy, but we destroyed a world. Yes, Vexillor said. That is what war is. That is what survival costs. We had forgotten. We had become so civilized, so advanced, that we forgot what it means to fight for existence. You reminded us. Months passed. The galaxy began to recover. Not fully. Hundreds of systems had been lost. Billions had died. But life survived. The silence had been stopped. The Galactic Council changed. They built what they called primitive zones across their territory. Areas where advanced technology was limited or banned entirely. Places where the silence would find nothing to feed on. Human advisors taught ancient species how to fight with bullets and blades again. It was strange seeing crystalline beings learn to fire rifles. It was stranger still seeing machine races practice with swords. But they learned. Because they had to. Because the galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Sometimes advancement makes you weak. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Colonel Chen stood at a memorial on Kelthera Prime. The planet was healing slowly. Parts of it would never recover. But life was returning. Cities were being rebuilt. This time they were built with simpler technology. Safer technology. The memorial was a simple stone wall. 10,000 names were carved into it. Human names. Simple letters carved in rock, like humans had done for thousands of years. No exotic materials. No eternal quantum matrices. Just stone. Just memory. Vexillor approached. She wore new armor now, a hybrid design. Council technology for life support and communication, but human weapons. A rifle across her back. A pistol at her hip. We had become so advanced we forgot how to be dangerous, she said, looking at the memorial. Chen nodded. We never got the chance to be anything else. We were still learning how to leave our own planet when you called for help. We brought you our violence because that was all we had. It was exactly what we needed, Vexillor said. You saved us by being primitive. By being simple. By being human. They stood in silence for a while. Above them, the sun shone. It was a little dimmer than before. The silence had wounded it, but it was alive, it burned. It gave light and warmth. Chen looked up at the recovering sky. Some stars were still missing. Dark spots where suns used to be. wounds the galaxy would carry forever. But most of the stars had returned. They shone in the darkness. Silent no more. What happens now? Vexillor asked. Now we teach, Chen said. We teach your people how to fight without relying on technology that makes you targets. We teach you how to be dangerous again. And you teach us how to build, how to explore, how to reach for the stars without ringing dinner bells for interdimensional horrors. A fair trade, Vexillor said. On a distant world at the edge of council space, a young human soldier taught an alien warrior how to hold a rifle. The student was awkward. The weapon felt strange in hands designed for different tools. But the student was learning. The human was patient. She had been trained by veterans who fought the silence. She understood what was at stake. The galaxy needed to remember how to fight, how to be dangerous, how to survive. Above them, the stars shone bright. They had gone silent once. They had almost been lost forever, but they had been saved by humans, by simple, primitive, stubbornly violent humans who refused to let the darkness win. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Sometimes the answer to impossible threats was not more advancement, not more sophistication, not more technology. Sometimes it was just good aim, and somewhere in the darkness between dimensions, the silence waited. It remembered the pain. It remembered the fear. It remembered Earth, and it stayed away. For now, the stars were safe. For now, life continued. For now, the galaxy survived. Because when all hope was lost, humans landed, and the stars went silent no more.